This is hour two of Hockey Prospect Radio on Sirius XM NHL Network Radio, partnered with ECAC Hockey, the leaders in hockey on and off the ice. Learn more at ecachockey.com. This week, happy to bring on Mike Harder, head coach of Colgate University. Mike, thanks for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Shane. This is fun.
Well, you're a Colgate alumni, so you were there from 93 to 97, actually former captain as well. Went on to have a good career as a pro as well. Talk about that journey for you of being an alumni. And I
Mm,
always find it's interesting that the alumni tend to find their way back into the ECAC. Was it
mm.
about this conference or even your own university that draws people right back of being a
Mm.
coach or administrator or being tied to that university in some way?
That's interesting. I hadn't fully thought that through, but I think it's the uniqueness maybe of the institutions. Like Colgate's incredibly unique. It's small, it's rural, it's elite, it's got a very passionate network. So really maybe I can only speak to that, but I think about some of our competition. The Ivies obviously are the same. It's got a uniqueness to how you navigate it. How you navigate things through admission maybe, and working in cohesion with faculty, the academic side of it. I think we get that. I think alums get that. I think it's important for alums to coach at their institution. Maybe there's some indoctrination too that goes on, that sort of you know that makes you want to come back, and a magnet that pulls you back. There is part of it. That's definitely part of it. But that's interesting. That's an interesting point for sure.
I'm curious to get your thoughts of the journey as a coach, because obviously you were an assistant coach and now a head coach, and that journey for you of watching those kids
Hmm.
evolve from freshmen into the
Hmm.
seniors, because it's such a massive jump for them in terms of not only on the ice and practicing and in the weight room and all these other things you have to do for the hockey, but a really rigorous academic
Yeah.
schedule. That's not easy. And
Yeah.
speaking to someone who's going through a PhD program, like I can understand like having to balance that. Like how does that work with your coaching staff and you and the faculty and your players and helping them guide them through that?
Yeah, a couple things. So Shane, I think you get this. You're a high achiever, and high achievers are high achievers. We say that all the time. If you can achieve in the classroom, you're probably doing really well here. If you're For lots of people, if they need to work out and take care of their bodies and eat well in order to think well and be successful in their jobs. So I think there's a pretty good balance there. I don't think you can be a great hockey player and then lazy in other parts of your life, for the most part. So those are the kinds of kids we go after, and they thrive here. They flourish. It's about squeezing the most and getting the most out of your guys, and it comes down to habits and details. We talked about this a little bit off air, but you fall to your habits, and our guys have really good detail. They're organized. They're organized in the classroom. They're organized in their dorms. Their social lives are organized, and it helps us then be organized in our systems and our structure and how we play the game. As for my coming back to Colgate, I think was the question. I think part of it, a big part of it, is that I didn't play in the NHL. I think about it a lot, and it's something I always wonder what could I have done differently. But the next best thing for me is getting these Colgate kids to the NHL. Like the amount of vicariousness, if that's a word, I live through Bobby McMahon right now with the Leafs. I just get so excited. I know Coach Vaughn, my predecessor, does the same. So we work really hard in the development part of it. Um, the other part is that I just love coaching. I love it. I love innovating the game. I remember I was playing in Sweden in the early 2000s. The best part of my day was staying after our practice and watching their youth hockey practices and what the Swedes were doing
Right,
and
absolutely.
how
In
the
their
kids were
club
moving,
system.
how they're talking to their kids, what they were doing off the ice. What It was fascinating to me, and I've always wanted to bring that back and expand and grow on things. And in fact, USA Hockey's borrowed great parts of that model, and done really well with it. So I mean, I just love the game, and I love being a Colgate alum, and those two things bring me back here.
Do you find it interesting when you look back at what you got to observe and then talk to people in Sweden and other
Mm.
European markets about the club system. And, looking at it for your players, I've seen the game from a different perspective. Is I'm going through that with our team in the U11 team is having the defense play forward and having the defense and then having the forwards play defense, and so they understand each position, so we can rotate them through. So they learn the game of hockey, not just learning to play a center or a left wing, and so they understand what the other players are actually doing on the ice, so they
Right.
can be a better line mate or teammate and understand what's going on.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Shane. Like the second best part of my day, other than being on the ice with the guys and interacting with the group, is planning our practice and planning game situations where you put the stress on these guys in different places. If a defenseman ends up in front of the offensive net or behind the offensive net, is the rest of your group smart enough to cover, to play that position, their position for a little while, and to keep things moving that way? You know, a lot of people talk about positionless hockey, and that's great, but it's can we put them in these situations where they see it and think it and react to it in the appropriate way?
And I find that really interesting in terms of when you're obviously you talked about building habits and players, and part of that also is building leaders. And although
Mm,
there are players in your team that have a letter, and an
yeah,
A or a C, everybody can be a leader. And how much of that habit forming is important to
yeah,
you and your coaching staff of building leaders, so then when a leadership opportunity presents itself,
right.
they're not hesitant or afraid to be a leader in that situation.
Boy, yeah, Shane, you know, we think about that all the time, and we like to call it conscious leadership. Like like how you do? Are you yelling at guys? Are you snapping at guys just in moments, or are you building your bank account as a leader? And you know, leadership for us sometimes comes down to hospitality and service. So if
Yeah.
you're a senior, are you on the hill helping the guys? Hey, I know where this class is, or helping them, you know, move into their dorm, things like that. Like that for us is real leadership, and we refer to that as conscious leadership and leading with kindness. And then that goes in to then getting that respect in the room. So whether you have a letter or not, the first years, the second years, they look up to our juniors and seniors because they've done the work and they've done it the right way consciously. So it's a really good question. It's something we, you know, as coaches look at, like service first and then get that team to buy in. But are they doing it peer to peer? That's
Do you,
where we like to get with this team.
do you find that when you're talking to your leaders, but then helping them build the other players into leaders, is you're not in charge. You're responsible for the people in your charge, right? And then the joy comes from being a leader is seeing the other people succeed. That's your currency, that's your result, that's your joy as a leader.
I love nothing more than just being in the background and watching like the passion that I have just spread through the team and the team sort of take it over. I love to economize my words, my actions. Listen, the best teams have players as their leaders, right? The best teams, you rarely notice the coach. You know, the structure's there, you're doing things, you're touching the right buttons, but you're far in the background. It's sort of like a great referee, right?
Yeah,
If you don't notice the refs, they're doing their job, right?
100%.
But I think, you know, if you're in the background and just pushing those right buttons, and you can get that group to buy in, that group can lead itself, and that's when you know you have something. That's when you know.
Is that part of your recruiting process as well, is like really digging into the person, the player, but also their family environment, because that's a reflection of that player as well.
Yeah, it's even deeper than that for us. Like I make it it's a mandate for us. Like I invite myself over to their house, what, you know, to meet their parents. You know, one of my first questions is like, tell me about your grandparents. Are you lucky enough to still have your grandparents? Where did they come from? What did they do? Do you talk to them? Where are they? You know, it's a very good indication of one's maybe
Legacy.
work ethic, one's legacy, one's support system,
Yeah.
and how plugged in they are with their family, and will that translate to a team? So yeah, we dig really deep on those relationships because you want to get it right. And for us at Colgate, we don't want to just be around you 4 years through your college. We rely on our alums and we love our alums. We want a 60-year relationship with you here at Colgate, right? Like we want to help you. We want you part of our network that helps everybody. So yeah, it's important.
Mike, want to thank you very much for coming on the show. Great insight, and good luck through the rest of the season.
Shane, I really appreciate it. Thank you.
We're going to take a short break on Hockey Prospect Radio. Stay tuned, and we'll be back right after this.